Hey guys, welcome to Gray, the podcast for those of us who are navigating this complicated world of military life alongside our partners. If you're looking for real conversations, genuine insights, and a community of seasoned MilSpouses dedicated to supporting each other through every challenge, especially those WTF moments, and maybe even find a silver lining along the way, here we are. We're going to get real about the highs and lows of military life, share stories, and have candid conversations as we laugh our way through it all. This isn't just a podcast. It's a sanctuary where we can all find connection, strength, and the courage to be ourselves, no matter where the journey takes us. Grab your headphones and settle into our corner of the internet where you're not alone. Let's gather at Gray.
Hi guys, this is Tanya. Since we recorded this episode on June 16th, our service members and their families have been pulled into all of the feelings that come along with the United States getting involved in conflict in the Middle East. And we want to hold space for that and for everyone who is navigating all of the really big feelings that come along with that, and acknowledge that and let you guys know that we not only see you and hear you, but we are you. And so we are here with you. We also want the next hour where you're sitting listening to a group of us share our tips for our younger MilSpouse selves to be an hour of peace and respite and hopefully a couple of laughs. And we want you guys to know that however you are feeling, however you are navigating the right now, whether that is by immersing yourself in the news or avoiding the news or whatever you're doing, your feelings are valid. How you're navigating them is valid, and you are not alone.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Gather at Gray, and this is one that I'm really excited about. I have got my girls from the 2023 Military Spouse of the Year class here with us. They're going to join us today and share some wisdom about what they tell their younger MilSpouse self. You guys, we've got decades upon decades of experience here between this group. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in, and we're going to go in order of service birthdays because that is how we were always taught to line up for pictures. Evie, wait, is it Andrea or Evie? I always forget, is it Coast Guard or Army? Who's oldest? Coast Guard. Andrea, kick us off.
All right. So my name is Andrea Cachula. I am, like Tanya said, a Coast Guard spouse. I have been a Coast Guard spouse for 11 years. So probably the least out of everyone here. And that's it. Who's next?
Army.
I'm Evie King. I'm the Army spouse. I have actually been connected to the Army since birth. So my dad is a service member. My mom is a service member. But I married into the service in 2011. So almost 14 years this year on this side, of the experience. Because as a kid, it's totally different.
All right. I think I would be next, but you guys know me. Hi, I'm Tanya, Navy. Hanging around here for a while. Allison, I think I messed up though. Is National Guard older than all of us? I'm sorry.
December
just
13th,
letting you.
1636.
I'm sorry. Okay, so Allison wins as the oldest service for National Guard. You guys forgive me for my lack of history knowledge.
I'm also
Secret,
the
I never
oldest
took
one.
U.S. history.
I'm also the oldest one on this. I'm Allison National
Ouch.
Guard. I will be hitting 26 or 27 years married into the military. I'm also a National Guard daughter and mother.
Love it. And our babe.
Hello, I'm Amy Selix, and I am a Space Force spouse, 22 years and counting, but I was also a military child.
Love it.
I'm here too.
And Courtney's here too. Courtney's here too.
Was an Army spouse until May 1st of 2025 when my husband retired. My father was in the submarine force when I was a little one, but he got out when I was quite young. So I didn't really grow up in the military service. But yes, I was an Army spouse, now retired Army spouse attached to West Point for the last 15 years. Yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah, and we do have our Marine Corps love, Natalie, and our Air Force love, Ashley. Ashley, I swear I didn't forget your name. I just had a brain fart. And unfortunately, they both had schedule conflicts, so they're not with us this evening, but they are always with us in spirit. So let's kick it off, you guys. Let's start with, I think it's kind of an easy one. So the question here for the day is, if you could sit down with yourself on day one as a military spouse, what's the first thing you'd want to say?
So, something that my dad said, and it was actually before I was a military spouse, but I think it ties into this really well. It was right before my spouse's first deployment. And he said, Evie, you are now joining like a community of people that spans generation and millennium who have had to say goodbye to their service member. And I remember the first time hearing that, and it really made me feel like I was becoming a part of something. Like, yes, I was saying goodbye to my service member, but I had all of these people, I mean, since war started happening, that had lived through this and that I was now joining. And I don't know, it just made me feel like I was now part of something bigger than myself.
I love that. I love that. Andrea, you got something?
Buckle up. Right now? You can use that.
After Evie's really eloquent answer, I
Yes.
was just going to say people aren't talking about you as much as you're thinking about it. And the longer you're in military service as the partner, spouse, significant other, that becomes a very real sentiment to remind yourself in each unit, everywhere you move, every time you have to make a new friend group, which we'll get to, I know. But yeah.
Andrea, I like your buckle up. I like that people aren't talking about you. The other thing that I wish somebody had told me on day one, and that it took me a long time, this is not just military spouse, this is just like life as a woman in the world. You are not anybody else's expectations, and you do not have to meet them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I spent a lot of like the early years being like, okay, so what are they doing? I need to kind of try to fit in with that. But like in reality, if you know me, I was never meant to fit into a typical military spouse space, role, whatever, right? And there's nothing wrong with that on either way. It's just that once I got comfortable being that person in the room that didn't quite fit anybody's expectation, all of this got so much more fun and so much easier. So I wish I had known that day one.
I would agree with you. I remember listening to a poem about military spouses that was read at a military spouse appreciation day event that I went to, and every single thing that was said, I was like, that's not me. That's not me. That's not me. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, do I belong in this room? And then, like you said, I realized I do belong. I'm just different, and that's okay. And actually, there are a ton of people like me and you and people listening who maybe don't fit. Honestly, I don't even think the mold is true. I think it is just expectations that we've somehow put together, but they're actually not true because most people don't fit that mold. But once you embrace your individuality and realize that you can approach this life differently and figure your own way, like it does become a lot of fun.
Yeah. Amy, you've got like years and years of experience in this world as a military kid and a military spouse. What would you tell day one you?
To run. Not away, towards. Run towards. My advice would be to run towards, not away from, because there's so many different unique experiences and opportunities that I think we all need to, well, that I try to focus on the most. And when I do, the ride is, I'm not going to say less bumpy, but more tolerable. If you can just run too. Lots of good things come out of this.
Oh my God, that makes me tear up. Like super cheesy, you guys, but seriously, because that is, I think it makes me a little bit teary because A, that is so much who you are, Amy, but also it's just like such good advice. And it's the exact opposite of what so many people expect once you've like hung around this for so long.
Yeah.
So I love that. Allison, as our, what did you say? I'm the oldest one here.
Hi, Andy. I'm
As our
always
most
the
seasoned
oldest
spouse,
season. I'm a classic.
you're a classic. Tell us, classy lady.
until you guys, and I know I say it all the time, I didn't know I needed you guys until I had you guys. And now I can't even imagine what I would do without you guys. But I think I would have told day one, learn about active duty, because till you guys came 23, 24 years into my career, I didn't know, didn't care, didn't maybe want to know. It just wasn't my world. So I ask a lot of stupid questions to you guys, like, what's a ditty? Like, just the dumbest things come out of my mouth that you guys all know what it is. But for National Guard, we're not AGR, and we're federal technician family. I've always worked for or with the military, but never active duty. So I think day one, I would have said, pay attention, learn other branches, except for Air National Guard and Army National Guard. But yeah, would have been a easier life these past 3, 4 years dealing with and hanging around with and trying to understand you guys, because you probably think National Guard's odd. I think active duty is a little on the odd side. So I
But
would
you're
have said,
asking questions now, Allison.
huh?
I said, you're asking questions now.
I know. Yeah. 20.
And you're teaching us now.
Yeah.
You're teaching us about National Guard, and that's so appreciated.
Well, 1636. I got a lot to bring you up on.
One mistake, Allison. You could have started off and interrupted me at the beginning, ma'am. I'm just saying.
That was so good.
1636. You know
See,
what?
Victor.
All right. So, advice covered. What's been the best surprise about military life for you guys?
The people. Come on.
Old people?
Well, I thought that you were answering it was the people. That is the best thing.
It is. It's the people. Yeah. Not always the places for me. The Army doesn't choose fancy places. Tanya, you get way fancier places and choices.
I mean, we've had some good ones. Evie's been overseas and had some good ones too.
Yeah, they've also been surprisingly challenging, which I don't think enough people talk about. I mean, obviously the people, but actually I'm going to say the places though, Courtney, because being someone from New Jersey, I don't think I would have ever thought like, oh, I want to live in Kansas or Tennessee even or anything, especially not near Nashville, because I don't really particularly enjoy country music. But sometimes when you are forced to live in those places, and I refuse to let a place be awful for 2 years, I have thoroughly enjoyed many of them. A lot of that has to do with the people, but then it also has to do with there's some really wonderful gems in all of these places. You just have to sometimes go out of your way to find them. And that has been really wonderful. I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed being surprised by parts of the US I would never have considered living, being places that I enjoyed while we were there.
That's true. I do agree with you.
Andrea
would have never chosen, but Andrea, go for
I
it.
wonder if Andrea says people or places, because Andrea has also lived some cool places.
Probably arguably some of the coolest.
Right. So Coast Guard is lucky in that way. We're always near water. And for the most part, we've always picked places near ocean. I'm not a lake person. So we've been very lucky in that way. But I would also say a little bit of both, like people and location, because like, for example, when we lived in Hawaii, you need to immerse yourself in their culture. And they are just so open and they are the most welcoming people I have ever met. So, when you do that, the respect goes both ways too. And it's been, it really is amazing to see that. So I think it's a little bit of both for me personally.
You
Can
guys
I
know
add something else? Sorry, I was going to think like on top of the places, the food.
The food.
Can we talk about like some of the food that we might never have been exposed to that now we like go out of our way potentially to drive an hour or two to find the best of because we know how good it tastes?
Can I add one more too, since we're still on this topic? Experiences. Like they're so unique. When we were stationed out in Vandenberg, our kids got to watch launches, and it was one of the coolest, most memorable experiences that, they'll have forever.
Yeah.
I would also say the community of being able to go visit your community where they live. We've been able to go all over the place, all over the world to see friends, stay with them, experience that when with the whole family, where you probably we definitely wouldn't have done that, right? You're going to go stay in a house with your friends. Your kids are not going to be in a very expensive hotel, and you're afforded that experience, and they get to have it. Just opens a worldview so intensely in such a beautiful way that allows them to I do admire the people who for generations stay in one place. It's phenomenal to me because it's just something that was never a reality. Even for me personally, I left when I to go to college in another state when I was 18 and then just kept going. And I love that experience for my kids. I also have 3 boys, and they've been all over the world because of that. We haven't been stationed all over the world just because of the jobs, but they've gotten to experience it even at a young age, and now they love it. Now, instead of gifts, we have a travel fund because they wanna be able to keep doing that now that we've just some of what they're mourning of transitioning out of the military is like, "Wait, do we not get to go and do all of the cool things again?" And we're like, "No, we can do it. It just has to be a priority for us as a family."
So I've already lost track. What was the question? The biggest surprise?
Yeah, the best surprise.
Yes.
Best surprise.
Listen, because there's been some really big surprises that were not cool.
Yeah,
So
this is the positive.
we're going with the best surprise on this one, sis.
Mine is just a little surprise because you guys know my story. So think back in the 90s and you meet your husband for the first day and he's like, I'm a Marine and I'm an E4. And I'm like, an E4. Oh my God, we're going to live in this big house and this is so awesome. And I get
I
out
love this.
on Saturday and I'm going to go back to Maryland and we're going to join the Army. And I'm like, okay, an E4. That was my biggest surprise, what his paycheck was.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a surprise.
Yeah, you definitely don't stay in the military for the
For the
paycheck.
money.
For the pay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Did
But let's talk about moving. I know
Mm.
we've got a lot of moves between all of us. We've got overseas, we've got Oconus, we've got a little bit of all of it. And I know moving is one of those topics, especially right now, that is particularly fraught for our community. I don't want to do horror stories because I think we all have those. But like best tips, best tricks for like, hey, you're new to this military life and you're about to move. Here's what I wish I had known.
Ziploc bags. First move, we lost like every top of every like travel mug. And that's because they were like thrown at the bottom of a box and just in the paper. Now, pretty much anything that is small, I just like dump in Ziploc bags. And that way when they pack it, tops, it doesn't matter if it fits in a Ziploc bag. I put like a clean sheet set in Ziploc bags with like a dryer sheet, and I put it in a separate box so that one, when we move, I know where all that stuff is. But yeah, Ziploc bags, I sometimes am like, I would marry that person who ever created Ziploc bags because they're so helpful. And for the
They're also very well.
yeah, sake of sustainability, I do have to say you don't have to buy new Ziploc bags every time you move. So just keep that in mind. I feel like I have to say that because Ziploc bags are like
Amy?
plastic.
Actually agree with Evie. I do a lot of pre-packing myself. Then, wherever we end up PCSing, we road trip and make it its own adventure because a lot of the times you guys know we're moving during the summer. That's a vacation season. And so instead of taking away the kids' vacation, we are just improvising. And some of our most memorable times and adventures have been along the route of a PC.
That's a good one. I always have a day one box, or I pack it and it goes with us, either one, like a bin. Depends on what Amy was talking about. If we're doing vacation in between, if we're doing point to point, that all makes a difference. But the biggest thing for me that was super important is that my kids slept in their beds on as quickly as they possibly could for them to settle in. Even if you could barely walk in the room, that they could sleep in their own bed. Because, you know, when they do household goods, the first thing I would have them do is set up their beds, and then I would make their beds so that they could sleep in their beds. Because that we can house camp for however long we need to house camp. You know, we can order in whatever we need to do. But that was really important for me.
Yeah.
I would say I have
Andrea, what about you guys?
Yeah, I have two. So first are because me and my organizational skills over here. Those colored room labels have been lifesavers for me, and they're so inexpensive. So I follow the movers around the house and just plop labels on every box. And I'm probably annoying, but it works and it keeps us super organized. And then when we move to the next house, we put the label on the door and the movers know where to put everything. So it speeds up the process on both ends. And the other thing I like to tell everyone is treat the movers you want to be treated. I've seen
Yeah.
people
Yes.
yelling at them and just being so rude. And then you wonder why your stuff arrives broken. I'm sorry. We spoil them. We cook for them. Their last day, we may give them a drink. We are like, they're our best friends for
Yes.
those days that they're there. And you know what? I can count on one hand how many things have been broken through our back and forth Oconus moves. So those are my two biggest tips.
Andrea, listen, you took the words out of my mouth. Because that is my tip. Like, my movers are my friends.
Yep.
We are kicking it. I am feeding you, and it's not going to be pizza. I will cook for you. You want sandwiches? I'll go get you sandwiches. You want what? You want what? Listen, you want these open bottles that are in my bar that I can't move anyway? Take that. Go ahead, baby. Like, we are going to be such good friends because I know that as long as I take care of you, you will also take care of me because I see the humanity in you. And so I'm not just another number on your list either. And I know it's like controversial, but like, I have also been known to tip a mover because, like, if you're doing me a solid and getting either my house packed very quickly and efficiently or getting it unloaded really quickly and efficiently, I appreciate that service. Okay. And if I was doing this myself, I would tip you. So, like, I'm going to do what I got to do. And we have had, like, really good movers. We've definitely had some where we lost some stuff, but, like, we've also moved a bajillion times. So it's going to happen.
Andrea is like who I think I'm going to be, and then I am not at all.
We all feel that way often with Andrea. So she does things here, and I'm like, I'm trying to reach you.
So, Court, you'll appreciate this. Andrea was an educator. So and then she's just like top notch organized. Like, anytime we go in here, she's like, hold on, guys, I've got.
Oh, I love.
Like, she's got it together. She's got it together. It's amazing and so good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
This one's Sidewalk.
Aw.
Tanya's holding a cat named Sidewalk for listeners who will not see said kitten.
As a slight aside, you guys, for our listeners, they are all four at my feet, you guys. I'm fostering 4 kittens. I'm keeping none of them. I will not be a foster fail.
We're taking bets.
Take your bet. I will take your money because none of these cats are going to live at my house at the end of this foster situation. But they are absolutely adorable. We've had them since they were 4 weeks old, and they're like 7-ish weeks now. And they're just like sweet little snuggle loves. Anyway.
One other thing, only because I did this for the first time before our last move, and we have obviously moved multiple times, but I would read the travel regs. I know it sounds super boring, but read the travel regs because there were so many things I wish I had known and or understood, and we were able to use them to cover things that we probably would have assumed we had to pay either out of pocket or assume that the military was going to pay that we realized they did not, like rental vehicles. But yeah, I just wish I had known that. Like, arm yourself with information, because then when you go to these people and they're telling you that you can't do something, you have a piece of paper that says, no, actually, I can. And we had to do that a number of times.
Evie, that's wonderful. Full disclosure, I married that man. I married him, so I didn't have to do that. So I love that for all of you who are those phenomenal humans. I will stand in the space and fight with you, but I also need you to know the regs so that I can fight for you.
fair. That's fair. For those who are wondering, if you want to be informed, but you don't necessarily want to read the regs, because we like to always share resources, we're going to recommend PCS Like a Pro with Megan Harless. Phenomenal resource.
Yeah,
So
great
much
group.
information, so much knowledge, like just on it. Because I will know bits and pieces of the JTRF, the Joint Travel Regulation F. I don't know what the F stands for.
I think it's just JTR, Joint Travel
Is it just
Regulation.
JTR?
I know
I
that because
accept
I
that
read
answer.
it.
I'll read it selectively. Like, I will Google exactly what I need from it, but I won't read the whole doc.
I was like, highlight tabs. That's when my organization comes out.
You Andrea it.
Hotkeys.
Evie went through it with like Andrea. She was like, hold on, now let's see what we've got here. Let's get all this together.
Yep.
I like it. I like it. All right, so we've moved. We've gotten to our new place. I'm going to confess, you guys, this is one that I'm actually struggling with. So we've been in this military life, 22 years this year? How are we building community and friendships? I literally, I feel like I've hit the place in my life where I'm like, I know my people, I have my friends, but you know what the kicker is? They're not here. And so I'm a year into this new duty station, and I'm finding, and I'm getting reminded regularly that while I build community with others and for others, that I am deficient in creating my own community. So how are we doing that?
FaceTimed while you went door to door with something to eat for all your neighbors. You didn't meet anybody doing that?
I mean, I met some of them. I helped the neighborhood throw an end of the school year block party. But it's like I go out and I'm like, you guys, let's do this. Let's all get together. But then I don't walk away with a new friend from it. I'm just like, yeah, we got everybody together. That was great. All right, well, I'm going to go home now. And
you know what T, I've learned, I was discussing this a lot because people assume where I live is very military. It's actually not. It's very legacy, a lot of legacy families for generations and generations, and then some military are sprinkled in there. But the biggest thing also is we're gatherers. A lot of us are gatherers. You're a gatherer, Tanya. I'm a gatherer. And so what I've learned is when you're a gatherer, then it's the expectation, right? That you will do the gathering. And when you're tend to be the new person, I want someone else to do the gathering. Like, I want to get the invite. I want to show up with a bottle of wine. Like, I want to have, not be in charge of that. And also you almost can't be in charge of it for a very said period of time because you don't have the people to invite to those things. But I'll say, in realizing that and being like, okay, this is not my lot, because that's not a problem, right? But is to always give an invite, even if it's a one-on-one for coffee. Because the other thing I'm learning right now in transitioning out of the military, and there not being voluntold events and requirements of things you have to show up to, is that a lot of people feel intrusive to invite you to things, or that you're very busy and I have sports, 3 kids in sports and all of these at school and activities and everything that they do. But I'm learning that the one-on-one moment is so crucial, just to be like, what are you doing for lunch? I have a free lunch. And now I'm getting invites. And I'm not having to be the gatherer all the time, every week, because that's also exhausting.
Yeah, I was like, what I would tell my younger self is that sometimes putting yourself out there, like, it's going to be exhausting, I think, for the rest of your life. Like, friend dating to me is just something that we have to do, and it's okay to admit that it's not always enjoyable. But the way that I've sort of worked through that is I've given myself a little bit of grace period after I've PCS to be like, it's okay if initially, like, I'm slow to enter. I don't need that right that second, because I would also struggle with the idea of, like, saying goodbye to people and then realizing that some of those friendships maybe weren't going to, survive the test of a move. Like, some people are just circumstantial friends. And I really struggled with that because I would start questioning, like, did our friendship really mean something? But we needed each other at that duty station, and that's okay. So yeah, I don't know. The friend thing, my first time going to a military spouse event, no one welcomed me. And that has been such a pivotal moment that has impacted everything that I've done going forward, where I feel so strongly, kind of like what you said, Courtney, that the community needs to do better. And which is not really helpful in this topic, but it's like I've realized it so much. Like the community needs to do better at welcoming people, because when we first move, there's just so much happening. It's all new, there's just so much stress. And that idea sometimes of meeting people can feel so monumental because it's on top of everything else that just happened to get you to that new duty station. So yeah, if you
You
have
wanna
that,
feel seen
yeah,
too.
right,
You wanna have at least one little moment that someone knows your name.
yeah,
They're not gonna know you, but at least
right,
that they say, "Hi, Abby. Good
yeah.
to see you. Glad you made it."
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say, all of that being said, something that I do that has just been really, really helpful for me to get just involved in the community is visit local coffee shops. I think it's a really low effort way of getting to know a new home. It's a really easy way to meet people because sometimes our homes aren't at a level that we feel comfortable inviting someone over. It lowers that feeling of needing to host somebody. And then, it's really easy because you just Google coffee shops in the area that are not Starbucks, although that's fine too. I would say find a coffee shop, go there, talk with the barista. I don't know. I've had such wonderful interactions at coffee shops. I've met people there who've turned into friends. I found the great local restaurants at a coffee shop, and it's just a really easy place to say "Hey, come have coffee with me and try this new place together." And it's been really, really easy, so it's helped with that.
I also think it depends what stage of your life you're in. So I have a young child
Yes.
still. So where do I meet all my friends? At the park. So the
Mm.
minute we moved in, what does your child want to do? They want to go to a park. They want to play outside. And I am very lucky. We have a park right outside our house. And the moms I have met there 2 years ago now have become my tribe here, my village here. Find your people. That's who they are. I'm at the point where I pick my child's friends based off their parents too. So
100%.
you have
100%.
to, right?
That's real.
So I think it just depends on your stage of life. So personally, can I go to a coffee shop and meet people that way? Maybe, but not necessarily when I always have a 7-year-old in tow with me. That wouldn't be enjoyable. But talking, to people out in the community, going on a walk, a bike ride, and meeting other people with kids, I feel like that's the stage of life that I'm in, and that's how I'm meeting my friends. So I think that has something to do with it as well.
I can solve all of your issues with 2 words: National Guard.
What?
What?
What were
National
your 2 words? I could
National Guard.
shut up, Allison.
You get your community because you live in the community, and then you get your military community because you go to the military on the weekends, and then you get your full-time job community because you have a job all the time. So I have 3 communities. National Guard. Just saying.
You were
We'll fall.
flexing on us, Allison.
Disclaimer that
Amy?
she gets a retention bonus from this for a sign-on bonus.
Right.
Recruiting.
Amy,
Might
Amy, give us your advice because I don't want to hear any more about I have all my communities.
We'll bring
Look at
John
me.
Michael back to National Guard where he started.
So I actually think that people nowadays don't really know how to connect. I think that we are living in a world where everything is instant gratification and you can't have instant relationships. That's something that you have to make a deliberate effort to investing in. And we're all busy, right? There are things going on left and right. And, there's so many, I don't know. It's, it's also a form of self-care. And I know that I don't always care for myself first. I know we're supposed to. Tanya, don't roll your eyes at me. But I'm just saying, right? It's not, that's just my thought on it. I also think that, you have to be deliberate and intentional in making those connections, but then maintaining them if you want a true, authentic relationship. It's not just going to be like, Evie, I'm not pointing fingers at you or anything in coffee shops, but like that real, true, it's not just being connected, it's connecting with each other. And that is something that as we look to build community, you have to be intentional and you have to, yes, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to kind of create what, create what you need.
Call out a really intentional thing you said, Amy, about instant gratification. In reflecting over the last many years, because the last month is the only month of my entire marriage that wasn't active duty, sitting sometimes in the aloneness and allowing yourself to maybe catch up on fitness or catch up on self-care. That is something that I learned way too late, that I would be really hyper about who am I going to talk to? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And then the seasoned part, I think of this a little bit, is also understanding uh, the space, allowing yourself the space to breathe and do what you need to do, not just for yourself, for your family, for your mental health, for everything. And I think we are often coached and told to jump in with both feet everywhere. That's the only way you're going to have success. But Amy, you called out a beautiful point around doesn't have to be that way. You don't need instant gratification. Put some time in when you're ready to put some time in.
Let's talk about deployments because they happen to all of us. They're National Guard included. And Allison, you just went through a long ass one. So yeah, let's talk about some deployment advice.
Yeah, I would say, well, this last one was probably his shortest, but if you add up in my marriage, I'm not talking about his entire career, but if you add up while we've been married, annual trainings when they're not at home station, meaning they're not here in the state, and all the deployments, March, we hit 100 months apart in our marriage due to National Guard separations. So I said that at work and they're like, oh, 100 months, that's great. And I'm like, could you guys do the math? I've only been married 26 years and he's been gone over whatever that is. 9, 10,
over eight of
yeah.
them.
So unfortunately, I'm always the elephant in the room that I actually like deployments. I take the time and each deployment, this one wasn't as unique, but each deployment I find a new hobby. And so I've tried pole dancing.
What? Okay, we started with pole dancing.
Look, Allison, don't sleep on that.
It was, I would say it was one of
I
my
knew
favorites.
something
I
was
didn't
coming.
realize how much core muscle I don't have.
And low key, I bet Scott Hash really appreciated that hobby.
Yeah, for like my routine was 2.2 seconds and then my arms gave out. So it was not a good thing. But like the kids and I, Friday night, I pick up pizza and we would watch a movie together. And then when they were not 5 anymore, they got to pick what they wanted to do on the next deployment. And that's what we did weekly. And then I did something for myself, except for this last deployment. All I did was house chores. But I mean, I built stuff, but
No, that's not house chores,
well,
building
honey
things.
to-do list, and I'm the honey doing my own list. But yeah, no, I don't mind deployments. I can't control them. I don't sign him up for them. I'm sure that joke is out there like, he's always gone. Allison must sign him up. Well, she doesn't. I would love for him to be around, but he could have been a coast to coast truck driver and he'd be gone weekly. And he's gone every 3 years. Not a big deal.
A lovely perspective.
Yeah, it's just not a big deal. It's our life and it has treated us well and it's raised my children and I have a house and I'm comfortable where we are. And I think we've been comfortable at every rank he's had. So I don't want to say I love deployments, but I really do. I'm comfortable in my own space, in my own skin, that they don't bother me. I'm very supportive of deployments. And then I think the challenge is because I don't mind them, that everyone who does mind them seems to call me before 3:45 in the morning. They just can't wait to go over a problem. my phone goes off at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 2-3 times a week on average. But that's okay because some spouse needs just an ear, and I will be that ear because I've got the T-shirt more than once, so I'm good. I'm good to go with deployments.
I want to do that. I want to calculate all the, what did you call them? I call them TDYs. What did you call it, Tanya? TDR? TDE?
TAD. TAD.
TAD.
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
I don't know. He just used it the other day when I was talking to him. He's like, yeah, since I'm TAD. And I was like, that's what you are. I don't know. I just say he's gone. Because here's the thing, right? Submarines are a little bit different. So, like, if you go by what, like, they absolutely call a deployment, in the last 22 years, he's done one deployment. He's done one full 6-month deployment, right? But when we were on Guam, this fool was gone probably 60 to 70% of the time we lived on the island. But because of the length of it, they didn't call it a deployment. They called them underways, right? And then even when you're like getting ready to do a full 6-month deployment, you've got workups. So like they're just gone all the time. So I never know what to call it. So this one isn't technically a deployment, but like he's gone. So like he's not home.
It's temporary additional duty versus temporary duty. And yes, it is specific to Navy and Marine Corps. You're correct because we talk deployment, but that's not the only time they're gone. They're gone training leading up to additional training. There's the TDY where they're gone for so many weeks plus at a time. And then there's deployment. So I would think of obviously deployment as overseas is when they, I believe, consider it a full deployment, which is a mind mess up for me in your current situation, Tanya. But for the Army, someone's going to correct me and that's fine. I'm happy to learn. But for the Army, I believe a deployment is it's always overseas. And then TDY is usually on US soil.
Look at Allison.
No?
Allison's already shaking her head now.
No, because you can be deployed in the US.
Yes.
Also, they now have rotations. And I was going to say that that's something, like if we're talking about, like the more practical side of advice that I would say, I think what's so important about this is also when it comes to families and the resources that are available, they have different things that are available to them depending. So, for example, if your spouse is on a rotation, at least in the Army, you do not get the same number of hours of respite care for childcare as someone whose spouse is designated deployment. You don't get combat pay. And so, from a family perspective, that can put some additional financial burden. And I think when I was younger, we just used deployment as like a catch all for anything that wasn't considered, 2 weeks or something like that. Like if it was months, we called it a deployment. And just from the practical side of things, it is very different, and it usually has to do with access to resources and pay, which can impact a family.
Great call out.
Andrea, talk to us about Coast Guard.
Excuse me, sorry. As far as our deployments, so we're strange.
Yeah, like
boys.
the time away.
So yeah, it just depends on where you are. Like we're used to, well, not used to. We've kind of done it all at this point. So we have our small cutters, our bigger boats. When we were our old station, it's called a mist. So my husband was gone more than he was home, but technically that, like Tanya said, that's not considered a deployment, although he was never home. So it really just depends on it all. But they all have their challenges. Something always goes wrong the minute they leave, like everything else. And you just kind of go with the flow. That's it.
Do you also
So what's your
have
advice for navigating it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you also have resources that are different depending on like
Title.
what title your spouse is under, what their mission is?
No, not necessarily. We have all of our family resources and all of those, Coast Guard support and all of those great things. But it doesn't matter whether they're, home, gone, because there's people that will go their whole career in the Coast Guard and may not step foot on a boat ever. So
Wow.
I know, believe it or not, it does
Fascinating.
happen. I'm not agreeing with it, but
Shut. It's just
Yeah.
that's my nugget of knowledge today.
yeah, it does happen. But yeah, so all resources are, minimal, but they are there.
Right, because and this was a call out, and Andrea, you have taught us more about this than anything, I think, is how the resources for Coast Guard are different because you guys are not under DoD.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it is challenging because a lot of new Coast Guard spouses don't know that. And it's not their fault they don't know that. They just, talk to other military spouses and they're told, you go on this website, you can take advantage of this, you can get a free certification here. They do think these are deployments and you can get a free, space A flight, but those aren't things that Coast Guard specifically can always take advantage of. So it's a learning curve always. And I feel like even now, almost 12 years later, I'm still learning of things that we can and cannot use. And now it's so wonderful that there are so many nonprofits that that give us their services, which is really great, but we don't have them in other places. So that's at least a good thing.
So I would love for you to share after the episode, because we like to always kind of put out resources in our links and things like that. Some of the ones that nonprofit resources that kind of step in and fill the gap that we can share with our listeners as well.
Absolutely.
I need to know, Allison, if you have a running tally for these 100 months, or is this something you sat down and calculated?
So my daughter sat down with my husband and they did that, I think her sophomore or junior year of high school, because she had to write a paper on what does 80 months, I can't remember what it was called. It's like 80 months without a soldier. And the teacher or the whatever assumed without a soldier meant that it was about grief. And it was just about, I think my son wrapped it up when he was 5 on the first deployment. They were high-fiving. They're 10 months apart. They were high-fiving on the drill floor. And I'm like, how disrespectful. Dad's leaving. Yeah. But now we have no punishments because you can't say no. And I'm like, well, I can punish. Okay, I do. I'm terrible at it, but that's not the point.
You can't.
They sat down and went through here's a fun fact for active duty. We have multiple DD 214s where you guys get one at the end. We get one at the end of each deployment, each Title 10.
Whoa.
Yes. So we have multiples of them, and he's got the one from the Marine Corps as well. So National Guard, we leave with a NGB 22. We do not leave with a DD 214. So
that's fascinating.
So, and it's all calculated on there. And then annual trainings, they only counted the ones when he was out of state. So from that 80 months, that was a good kickoff. And then we've done 2 deployments.
The additional. I want to do that. I want to sit down and calculate it.
I don't.
I was going to say, it can be kind of depressing.
I don't. I just don't. I don't. I realized the other day that Scotty and I have not lived together for a full year. We haven't had the same address for a full year since 2021. I have no interest in calculating how much time we spent together apart at this point. I don't even care. It's going to make me sad.
Yeah. Well, I will say,
Amy,
the days of 18-month deployments are gone. Thank goodness.
Yes.
Those are gone.
Well, Amy, talk to us about Space Force deployments.
So we luckily haven't had a deployment since we've been in Space Force, but I can tell you when we were Air Force, so we've done a remote tour. Jim was in Thule for 15 months right after Ethan was born. So that was super fun. And then we had a short notice deployment in 19. And I would say advice, is that what you're asking, Tanya? Advice would be very proactive communication. That when we knew, so we didn't obviously have that with the short notice deployment. So we had a heads up on that, right? So we were able to go and do the therapy and the marriage counseling. And that was, I just kind of think of that as a prophylaxis, like a preventative maintenance. And that helped us a lot. And it gave us tools to get through that period, but also it helped us when he came home and we had that reintegration. The other thing that I would say as far as deployments or remotes, is have many milestones because it breaks it up a lot easier than when you're looking at this whole big experience. It just looks like it's so much to take in all at once. You're like, oh my gosh, I have 15 months of this. But when you have these mini milestones of, okay, I just got to get to next week because next week I'm looking forward to whatever, a next concert, right? Okay, I made it. I made it a week. And if you just do that, it kind of chips away at a little bit easier. It's easier to swallow. What else would I say? Oh, I would say, before you get to a point where you're having any sort of separation, again, we're going to go back to the building your community and being intentional with making those connections before you get to the point where you're on your own and you have no one to turn to. That also helps make those periods of separation easier when you've already kind of laid a foundation for people to come in and help you. And that I think I learned with the short notice deployment how important that was. Because when you only have 3 weeks to prepare,
Yeah.
like you either have the community there or you don't.
Right.
So invest in it, be proactive about that. And I would say, you know, there's no reason for you not to be connected to somebody where you're going or where you've been. I mean, look at us. Everyone's on technology all the time.
Mhm.
Everybody's on social media. Like, reach out, get to know people. You don't have to be best friends, but they can introduce you to other pools of people that you will find those deeper connected connections with.
But Andrea was talking about she has younger children. And I think that has a lot of impact on your experience. When we had a short deployment and I had an 18-month-old and a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, it was a very different experience than a couple months of training and having a middle schooler. Very different experience in how you prepare for it. Not only that, but just the stress level. I am one of those people, y'all can come at me if you want, but I love that my children are not babies anymore. I was not a baby mom. I was the mom that was like, when do we not do this anymore? And now my kids aren't Tanya's age, but they're older, not babies, right? So, and I have a blast with them now. Like, I was made for this stage when we're having a grand old time and picking on each other and all this stuff. But the baby stage and your partner being away was so much harder for me. Then you already have routines. There's a busyness when they're older that isn't what I considered the exhaustion of entertainment and the whole routine throughout. And also for those of us who work, that's also a different weight of keeping all of the balls in the air and juggling moving forward. That also is impacted on the age of your children and where you live and what Amy said about, were you intentional about, or did you have the ability to be intentional about making community ahead of time? Because sometimes you also move to a place and your person deploys 3 weeks later. That is also a scenario, and you don't have that. But having knowing it's going to end is a huge factor. What you're in now is not always. And Allison, having people like you around who are like, this is good. We're going to do it. Like, we're going to get through it. What new thing do you want to learn? What can you do for yourself? You are a massive cheerleader for other people in the community who are
all the
struggling
time.
with that.
All the time. I will tell you, Allison is like, she is beauty. She is grace. She will put a smile on your face. Like, honest to goodness, I'm telling you. And like, sometimes I'm like, Allison, sis, I love your little rosy glasses, but can we have just a minute? But like, she's always so good about that. And I will say, for me, deployments are, this last one's a little bit different, but even just this conversation is really pointing out two things to me. A, I say I don't have community, but I do have community because I have you guys, right? There have been a number of times that I'm like, oh my God, there's this, there's this, there's this. Amy has offered to come like be with my people. Courtney, you've offered to come be with my people. I think there's value in recognizing sometimes that even if our community isn't as strong, and I do know people here, I do have friends here, they're just not my people I'd call in the middle of the night, right? But even when our community isn't necessarily local, I think there's a lot of value in saying that we do still have community, because I do, right? I have
Well,
you
also
guys.
there's DoorDash.
Right. I will tell you, and you say that there's DoorDash. These girls DoorDashed me a gift card after my mom passed that literally fed my children many, many nights when I was like, I just can't do this. Like, this is just too much, right? And so, like, when I say that I have like a really amazing community, even if it's not local to me, I absolutely mean it. I think I it's funny to think that I don't have a deployment tip, because I think some of it is a little bit of everything, right? Allison, I am team like pick a new hobby, do a new thing. I am a huge fan of like you leaving and me coming back and me being like, "Eh, look at me now." Like, I love a good deployment glow up. What? Like, you came back and I got my like good body back. You're welcome, baby. I love that moment, right? I love having adventures with my kids. We used to do a thing called just like adventure summers. We're like, okay, what are we going to do today? We're going to go find the best pizza places around here. We're going to go do the whatever, right? And then the best part of that has always been, and then when daddy gets home, we'll show him all these cool things that we've like learned and found about wherever we are, because we've always joked that he only visits where we live and we get to live there. So like, let's introduce him to this place where we live. So I think that's probably a big thing for me. And then the biggest thing, and this is going to be our last topic, and I think it's one that we've touched on kind of little bit by little bit, but I think is worth everybody kind of giving a tip on. And we're going to start with Evie, and that's self-care and wellness, right? Because that is the common thing that underlies every topic that we've talked about, that as military spouses, we are not always great about. We are great about jumping on a meal train and taking care of somebody else. We're great about helping somebody else with their child care or picking up the slack or whatever you need, about putting all of our other people first, our kids, our spouses, the other spouses in the command. We are not as great about taking that time and giving ourselves that same care and consideration that we're so quick to distribute to everyone else. So I want everybody to think of a tip, but we're going to kick it off with Evie, because I don't know if you guys know this, but she's got independent, and like, this is what they do.
Yeah. And we are also a nonprofit that supports Coast Guard. So not only DoD branches. Yeah, I mean, this is everything that I do all day, every day. And right now we're like neck deep in research that I think is going to really, really help military spouses going forward to get resources that we need in order to do better. Because I think that there are so many organizations who want to help, but we're just a very severely under-researched population, because the assumption is that civilian resources will fill in that gap, which they can, which they definitely can. But honestly, I think something that I wish I would have known sooner was energy management in different seasons of military life. So, for example, when my spouse is gone for an extended period of time, I feel like it takes longer to recharge my battery, and my battery is used up a lot faster. And in those moments, especially, depending on how connected you are to the community, a lot is asked of us. And I just learned to be unapologetic about my needs. And I wish I had learned that a lot sooner, because I have experienced burnout multiple times. And that was because, like you said, Tanya, we were pushing through, taking care of everybody else. In some ways, it's kind of the expectation as well. As like, we all rally. And sometimes you realize late at night that you're like, oh my gosh, I am not doing well. But I still felt like I needed to push through. And now I just feel so much more comfortable saying no or saying I can't do something. And that has been really freeing. And just the other day, like I was asked to do something, but I had kept putting off a pedicure appointment, just something simple. And, that doesn't necessarily mean it's self care, but at the moment it was self care for me. And I was so proud of myself for saying, you know what, I'll get back to you after my appointment. Where I think when I was younger, I would have felt the need to put myself and my needs second and help that person. And at the end of the day, they were fine, even if it was 2 hours later, me getting back to them. But I just wish I had learned that sooner, because energy management at different seasons of life, it can really burn you out if you're not kind of aware of that. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no, but it's also okay to say yes. Like, choose your yeses and your nos. But Yeah, I wish I had just said no a lot sooner and realized that that was okay.
I love that.
And like a wise person on this call taught me 2 years ago, Tanya, no is a complete sentence. And from the
Yes.
minute she said that to me, I think I say that like once a week. And, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, like at work, at a lot of things, I always like to say, like, I like to try to get to a place of yes, but sometimes no is just the way it has to go, you know? So many things Evie said really truly hit hard. You know, if you would have I know I joked earlier just saying like buckle up, like one thing you can tell yourself. But really, I feel like if all those like resources I always give out and I'm that person everyone always comes to, like I didn't have that person. So that's why I became that person for our spouses. So I feel like sometimes it's really important to it's okay to put yourself first, you know? So self-care is here. And it took a really long time. It truthfully took just about last year when I won the independent like grand prize for their summit. And I told Abby this after, like it really like showed me that I was putting myself on the back burner and everyone else first. And that's not okay. And it's really hard to see that, especially when you're by yourself and your spouse isn't home most of the time. So I think it there's no there's not enough ways to explain how important it really is for self-care and such.
Okay, well, I'm going to go. Mine's a quick story. I don't do well with keeping anything alive that's green or colorful. So, as Scott was leaving for this deployment, they were all on the bus and they're like, Scott, what's that florist that you always use? And which is a joke because Scott doesn't buy me flowers because I know they come dead, but they will be even deader within an hour if I touch them. They're like, oh, he's like, Dee's florist, just down the road. I'll give you the phone number. So everyone's going around the bus ordering their spouse flowers so that they have flowers the next morning after deployment, after they fly out. They're like, what'd you get her? What kind? And he's like, oh, I didn't get her anything. Hang on. So he's on the bus and I'm getting the story from the guy in the seat next to him. He's like, feverishly, like, well, first of all, you have to know we're old. So when we're on the electronics, it's like, we're not fast. But he was going very fast and he's like, she'll have that crate in a week. So they're like, what crate? He got me a hot tub and it got delivered and they set it up. And it took 3 days for the water to get hot because I didn't realize 500 pounds took that, or 500 gallons takes that long. But I would say I take the time 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning and I get in. And it's the last thing I do before I typically go to bed. But this is way past my bedtime. So I'll probably skip tonight. But if he wouldn't have bought it, I do not do self care very often. I don't get.
Can we rewind? Did this woman just say 3:45 a.m.?
See, you notice how none of us blinked because we all know that
But
Allison
for
doesn't.
me and the rest of the people who are listening to this, I need to unpack that situation.
Again, she needs her entire show just for Allison.
Okay.
Whole show. Because yes, Allison gets up about 3:30 or so. Like she'll be like, we slept in till 4. And I'm like, that's not sleeping in. That's sleeping.
I can say this
Period.
whole last weekend, I still woke up at the same time, but I did not get out of bed till I heard somebody else in the house moving. I was a good house
I can
guest.
agree. That is true. She slept at my house. They stayed in their bed till 6 a.m. That doesn't mean they were they were awake. They were sleeping, but they stayed in.
I think everybody kind of hit it without directly saying it, but mine would be boundaries.
Yes.
Yep, that's a big one for me.
Why do we wait so long to learn boundaries? This is something I think some of it I think is a generational thing. My mother may come through this and tell me another thing, but I have imparted that I think we'll see more into my children because I didn't feel like anyone told me I could have them for myself, right? I mean, now I have all the boundaries, but took me a long time.
And I think it takes practice too, right? It's not something that just comes easy. It's like, oh, wait, no, I do have the power to say no, or this just doesn't work for me, or whatever. But I think that that is probably one of the best forms of self care.
Amen. All right, Court, what you got?
Oh, self-care? I'm very bad at it. Okay, self-care on my tip. Y'all have had wonderful tips. I am a person that has to work out, or I'm very angry. And it also seems to be the first thing that falls off when you're holding all of the plates spinning in the air, when it feels like that in those seasons. And so I'll talk about boundaries is I've had to be an example of Evie saying I moved a meeting. I now schedule it in my calendar, and I time block in my calendar certain things that I want to do. Like today, I went and got this manicure in the middle of my day, and I just blocked it on my calendar. And I've had to learn to do that and be really intentional about it because I'm not a girly girl, but doing those little things here and there, I've learned just makes me feel better. It gives you a moment to breathe. It's a refresh. And also working out or sweating in general. I love a sauna. Go in and just melt. It's fantastic. But doing something that is intentional and you're setting aside the time, I think is the whole premise of it, right? Allison says she has a new hobby. She learns something new or has a new hobby every time she's going through, a separation and those types of things. I think it's the same self-care premise of what is it, my Lord, what is it that your body needs or that your person needs or your mental needs? And how are you going to intentionally put that in there? Put it in your schedule.
Oh, you guys have hit so many different really, really great tips. I don't think that I have anything to add to them. I have, except for this. I'm like, I have nothing to add except for this one thing I totally have to add. So my bestie told me one time when I was in the midst of not caring for myself again, because that's kind of where I exist. We've all heard the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so we always have this vision that we have this cup here and we just got to keep filling it up. And she said to me one time, you shouldn't be pouring from your cup at all. Your cup should be so full that you're pouring from your saucer. And I was like, I don't even like you right now.
Is this
Does that
Charlotte?
Yes, it was Charlotte. And I guess, no, I can't stand her.
Yeah.
I love her. Like,
Such a bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
she's such a bitch because she's always right. I was like, I don't even like you. But like, it struck me. Like, it's so true, right? Like, we always think that we need to like just not deplete ourselves all the way. And as long as we're like kind of like backfilling a little bit, we'll be good. And we never think that we should be keeping ourselves at full and giving from our excess when it comes to self-care and caring for others. And that imagery has really stuck with me. And so that I've been more intentional about setting the boundaries, about really seeking out the harmony in my life, because there's no such thing as balance, but really finding that harmony between work and kids and self, about ensuring that I'm getting my nails done, because that is a priority for me, right? It'll happen every 3 to 4 weeks without fail, that I'm making time to move my body so that I'm not trying to be mad at people, because I will be a really ugly person should I not be getting enough movement. So that would be my tip, is when you talk about your self-care and you talk about what you're giving, make sure that you're pouring from your saucer, not from your cup. Yeah.
One day I'll describe how I view harmony, like very visually. So I'm all about harmony over balance. I think balance is unattainable and it sets people up for failure.
Amen.
And frankly, I don't want to be balanced. I want my life to outweigh my work and, all that other stuff. So, yeah.
I love that. We're keeping that as our final tidbit right there, Abby. Right, because it's true, right?
Right.
You guys, thank you so much for sharing your evening with us. I am so grateful. I don't know if our listeners know this. I know I've told you guys this before. I know, Allison, you said that before 2023, you didn't even know that you needed us. I will tell you guys, I'll tell our listeners, I came into this whole program kind of very reluctantly and like, oh my God, what is this even? And I have been so blessed and gifted over and over again by the friendships and the relationships here. And my favorite thing about them is that each time I'm with you guys, it just grows even better, even stronger, even deeper. And so I'm so grateful that you guys all were like, yeah, we'll come on and hang out with you on Gray. It means a lot to me to have you guys here. Natalie, Ashley, we miss you guys. We know that like life is lifing, but know that you are in our hearts and we missed having you guys here. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next time at Gray.
That's a wrap on this week's episode. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to continuing to provide a space to get real about both the challenges and the beautiful moments of living this military life. We hope you find support and, of course, some laughs. Remember to follow us on the socials, and don't be afraid to join the conversation. Until next time, this is Gray.